The Denver Broncos defense is building more confidence ahead of Sunday's matchup against the Green Bay Packers. We'll take a look at the tail of the tape and dive into the injury report going into Sunday's game. You're going to get all that on today's brand new episode of Good Morning Broncos. Good morning, Broncos Country. Welcome into another episode of GMB, your daily bite-sized Broncos conversation. And you know what? We always encourage you, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and let's dive into what's going on here in Dove Valley. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports. Do us a favor, Broncos Country, or if you are a Colorado sports fan, hit the subscribe button on this YouTube channel down below so you never miss out on what's going on with all the professional teams in Colorado sports. You're going to get Arif Dean's coverage of the Colorado Avalanche. You're going to get Ryan Blackburn's coverage of the Denver Nuggets. Plus, you get Broncos content and conversation here as well. Mile High Sports, every team, every day. Good morning. Happy Friday. Hope you are all well in Broncos country. Now, hey, this week for Denver, they've really just been going through the process of it's been quiet in a sense, right? I think usually on a week-to-week basis, we sit here and we talk about, oh, hey, what's the biggest storyline this week? I just think that the vibe overall in Dove Valley this week has been a little bit different. The players' vibe, like they're focused and things aren't as lax, right? There's a sense of urgency. And look, I think for them specifically, you look at where they've gotten off to this 1-5 start. A lot of guys are frustrated about that. But you know what? You can't change what your record is, but you can change what you do going forward. And I think that's the mentality here of this team. And I think that's the vibe I've gotten from them this week. And first off, let's talk about really the Broncos defense. Outside of the Breece Hall big-time run, I'd say in the last 2 weeks, you can say from a coverage and schematic standpoint against the Jets and also against the Chiefs, Denver's defense has improved. They've gotten better. And now, obviously, they've been much better in the red zone in terms of not allowing a touchdown there. I mean, obviously, they had one against Kansas City. That was the first one in quite some time that they've allowed there. So Denver's defense, red zone-wise, they've tightened up a little bit. And that's going to prepare them for a little bit of a challenge here this week. Now, this is a weird matchup with the Green Bay Packers because the Packers are sitting at 2-3 on the year. They're coming off of a bye. Their offense isn't that great either, but they are efficient and they have some good areas on the offense that, you know, when they're in certain situations, they take advantage of and they capitalize here. So first off, let's go through our injury report. Then we'll get into our tail of the tape here, looking at the Broncos offense against Green Bay's defense and vice versa. Denver's D against Green Bay's O, and take a look at key players to watch here. First and foremost, injury report here. It looks like that Baron Browning is on track to make his season debut here on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers. He was dealing, came off the PUP list with an knee injury after having knee surgery. You look at center Lloyd Cushenberry, he's been dealing with a quad injury. You look at DJ Jones, been dealing with a knee injury. Those three players have been full participants all week long. Now, on Wednesday's practice, initially Kareem Jackson was limited with a neck injury. Thursday, he upgraded to a full participant. Justin Simmons has been limited 2 consecutive days, Wednesday and Thursday, with that hip groin injury that's been bothering him since training camp. So I imagine we might see an upgrade here from limited to full today. We'll see that at Dove Valley, the final practice where they put the finishing touches on their preparation against the Green Bay Packers. And then obviously tight end Greg Dulcich is the only player who did not participate, and he's going to be out for quite some time. We don't know exactly what the timeline is going to be, but he isn't going to be playing on Sunday here. So the Broncos getting some guys back healthy. I think DJ Jones being back is going to be a big addition for them. I think the introduction of Baron Browning, who looks good, he's moving really well. It'll be nice. But, hey, temper your expectations, though, as I've said in yesterday's episode of GMB. Barron's going to have to get his feet under him a little bit, knock some of the rust off, but that's what playing is for. So I think he's going to be an exciting addition to throw in there alongside Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper here. But that's the injury report. I mean, I feel like the last few weeks we've had like an extensive questionable, did not participate, full. And hey, you know what? Denver is making strides here. And look, they're 2 weeks away from the bye week. If they can continue to stay healthy, they might get even more guys back from injury after the bye week. So, hey, there's some optimism brewing in some of the fields here in Broncos country. But let's take a look here at the tail of the tape here for this Broncos defense. First and foremost, we're going to talk about that because they have made drastic improvements. Now, some of the performances I've had dating from week 2, week 3, and even the allotted yardage allowed in week 4, that's put them in a very, very, very rough statistical ranking and output. And obviously giving up over 200 something on the ground to Breece Hall and the New York Jets is not going to help your rankings either. But in terms of net yards per game, the Broncos 32nd ranked defensively, allowing teams to amass a total of 440.3 yards per game. And look, really that Miami Dolphins game, the Chicago Bears game the week after, I mean, that was almost over 1,000 yards combined in those 2 games there. So for Denver, that's really kind of skewed their ranking here. But in the last couple of weeks, they've actually been better. And some people are going to say, well, they only held the Chiefs to 389 yards of offense. They only scored 1 touchdown, though, right? And that's the thing. Like, you can allow yards. It's not always about yards. I feel like yards is one of the most misleading stats here in the NFL in terms of team net yards. The story of the game is, can you get off the field on 3rd down? Denver held the Kansas City Chiefs last week to 4 of 13. That's 30% on 3rd down. They held Patrick Mahomes in that offense to just 1 touchdown. Those are things you build off of. Those are things that I think you have to highlight and talk about. So just something to keep an eye on there for that. So Denver obviously allowing 440 yards on the ground. Green Bay's offense, though, they're bottom ranked. They're 28th in the NFL, bottom 10 in terms of net yards per game. They're only coming up with 281.6 yards per game. And a lot of that, 200 of that's coming in the passing game. They're averaging 81.6 yards on the ground. Their run game has really struggled, and that's in a combination with Aaron Jones dealing with some injuries. A.J. Dillon is their leading rusher right now with 194 yards on the ground. Jordan Love, 109 yards on the ground for him as the quarterback. So obviously athletic, can get outside the pocket, can extend plays here. And I think another thing, too, with Aaron Jones monitoring it, he's been on the injury report all week. He's got a hamstring, he's been limited. So we'll see what his status is going to be here for Sunday's game. What type of impact could he have here? But this is a scheme, as we've talked about. Denver has struggled against this type of scheme so far this season. They struggled against the 49ers scheme in this relative standpoint in the preseason there. So definitely something to monitor here. I mean, in terms of yards per play, the Broncos are once again giving up 6.71 yards per play, which is, they've taken a step back in a good way versus the 10 yards per play that they were allowing early on in the season after that Miami game. So they're getting there. Denver's defense, the communication is much better. We talked to Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain. We talked to other defensive players. I had a chance to speak with Josie Jewell, and they just, they got more confidence. They said, we've simplified some of our coverage calls. It makes our communication much easier against motion. And, we're just going out there and we're just playing. Our feet are on the ground. We're locked in there. So things are changing from a communication standpoint. Vance Joseph highlighted this for us in Thursday's press conference, talking about, it's always players first, scheme second. And so he's made some changes himself, and it's just about being cleaner in the operations, right? Point of attack against the run, making sure you're filling the right gaps necessary. You got to tackle, you can't be arm tackling, can't be flailing, can't be missing there. And obviously getting takeaways is going to be a big key. And I think that's going to be one of the storylines that we have to monitor for this game, because you look at the Green Bay Packers offense on the season. Look, they protected the football relatively well. When you talk about volume, sample size, there are only turnovers that come through interceptions. Jordan Love has thrown 6 interceptions so far this season. Denver has 6 total takeaways, 4 of those being interceptions, 2 of those being fumble recoveries. So can Denver find a way to fluster a young quarterback here in Jordan Love, make him hold on the ball a little bit longer, and then maybe throw it into windows that, there's going to be contested coverage? Can Denver's secondary come up and make some plays here at cornerback or at safety or even linebackers in the passing lanes? Like, these are things I'm eager to see if Denver can do that this week. They're going to have to generate more turnovers if they're going to have chances to win games. Look, the defense, as good as they did against Kansas City, look, they got an interception with Justin Simmons. They halted the Chiefs from another scoring drive on that one. Kareem Jackson had one that got called back due to a pass interference call on the defense. Denver's getting themselves in positions lately to make these plays. And then Patrick Surtain the week prior against the New York Jets came up with an interception on a back shoulder, and just another fantastic feat for him there. So these are things we're going to watch. Denver obviously coming into this game defensively, and this is once again skewed because of that 70-point output that they allowed, allowing 33.3 points per game. That is 32nd in the NFL. The Green Bay Packers offense, they're kind of middle of the pack there, almost into the top 10 in a sense, 22.6 points per game here. So Denver can't play into their hands. Like, they're struggling. Green Bay's offense, and Matt LaFleur, their head coach, has said it, they're just not consistent enough. They have choppy play. They have breakdowns at different levels, and they just can't piece together a full game. And their offense has really kind of struggled to get going a little bit. So that was a little bit of a surprise to see, especially after, how Jordan Love looked in week one or how the Packers looked in the preseason. They looked like they were clicking. The offense was in motion. It was in rhythm. And then obviously injuries happen. They lose Christian Watson. I mean, he's back into the mix now, but they've had to rely on Romeo Doubs, Reed. They've had to rely on tight end Luke Musgrave. No David Bakhtiari at the tackle position. And so for Denver's defense, this is a chance for them to get right. This is a chance for them to go out there and build even more confidence. And I think that's the goal. That's the aim that they're looking for. And it's going to start with stopping the run. I mean, Denver allowing 172.3 yards on the ground per game. That hopefully ranking by the time week 16 comes around kind of balances out. But, because of the hole Denver's put themselves in historically after the first 4 weeks of the season from a defensive standpoint, they're going to have their work cut out for him. And I think when you look at it too, A.J. Dillon, we talk about their leading rusher. He's a downhill guy. You're going to have to make sure he doesn't get yards after contact. That's been a huge issue. You can't arm tackle him. You can't tackle him up high because his nickname is Quadzilla. I mean, this is a dude who's big and runs with force and power. And then we'll see where Aaron Jones fits into the mix here. Obviously, if he's healthy and is 100%, he's one of the most dynamic guys you have to worry about on the field because he can impact you out of the backfield as a pass catcher. And then he's so elusive that he can get upfield. I mean, he'll break big runs and he's explosive. And so that to me, I think is the worry point that I have going into this game here. And then obviously Denver, 268 yards allowed in the passing game per game. That's 30th in the NFL. Green Bay averaging around 200 yards passing per game there with Jordan Love. So it's just about finding that balance here. Can Denver figure it out? Green Bay has not lost a fumble on the season. That's good for first in the NFL. They've only had 6 giveaways, which were all 6 interceptions in 5 weeks for Jordan Love. And Jordan Love's only been sacked 10 times in 5 weeks. And look, some of that production can come in one game, as we all saw with Russell Wilson against Washington. 7 of the 19 sacks that he's been sacked for came in one game there. So it can kind of skew things a little bit when you look at statistics. Obviously, Green Bay, red zone wise, they're very good. They're top 10 there. They're 62.5% conversion percentage inside the red zone. So when they are there, they're making the most of those opportunities. You look at them on third down, they're 12th in the NFL, converting on 40.9% of their third down attempts. And this is where Denver has seen that big improvement in the last couple of weeks. They've been pretty solid on third down defensively. They're 15th right now, allowing teams to convert on 38.8% of their third down attempts. Denver's red zone defense has obviously improved. It went from 31st to 19th, where they're allowing teams, instead of 81.6% of red zone attempts to be converted into scores, it's now 53.9%. So drastic improvement here for Denver. You love to see that for them, and some changes maybe on the personnel side. Obviously, Jaquan McMillan's emergence in the nickel has been big for them in the last couple of weeks. So I think that's something we have to highlight here. Now let's take a look at maybe how Denver's offense stacks up against the Packers defense. And look, when you look at that Packers defense, the guys that they have on that defensive line, front seven, you look at obviously Rashawn Gary at outside linebacker. You look at Kenny Clark on the interior. That man is a force of nature. You talk about Clay Walker at the inside linebacker position. Then you look at the second row. There's Eric Stokes. There's Rasul Douglas. Oh, and there's Jair Alexander, who can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. I mean, they have really good coverage combinations. And former Broncos cornerback coach Greg Williams, who came over, was the cornerback coach for the Broncos, DB's coach for them when Vance Joseph took the head coaching job in Denver initially, and then he followed Joseph to Arizona. He's a very, very good coach, and he's getting a lot of production out of those guys. Good communication, good savvy veterans there. And so, yeah, you're going to find a way to, mitigate some of those opportunities that Green Bay Packers defense has. And for Sean Payton, it's getting Russell Wilson, the Broncos offense, into a point where it's not so simplified. Like some of the things we've seen Denver ran, and Sean Payton said this week in his press conference, it was really mind-boggling to me. He said he wasn't a fan. He didn't like the plan offensively going into the Kansas City game. Well, I'm like, if you didn't like the plan, how come you didn't change it? Like, you're the head coach. Was this a realization he had on the sideline as the game was going on? Maybe. I don't know. We saw a lot of route concepts, right? You'd see a 3-receiver set, tight end protection on the backside there for the Broncos, and you'd have 3 receivers on the left side running a route, but they're all running the route to the same side, vertically and to the outside. There were no in-breaking routes that would challenge the defense, and I think that was a huge issue that we saw. I thought Dan Orlovsky did a really great job of kind of highlighting and breaking that down here for the Broncos. So offensively, just get back to what's been working. I think balance with that starts with the run game. Denver obviously has made some jumps there, averaging 106 yards on the ground. It could be even better if they stick to it and they commit to it. And obviously from a passing offense standpoint, Denver is very similar to the Green Bay Packers, 200.3 passing yards per game versus the Green Bay Packers, 200 yards passing per game there. But you look at where that defense is at here, and we talked about Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, and obviously the guys that they have there in the secondary in Green Bay. They're holding teams' passing offenses to 194.4 yards passing per game, which is good. Top 10 in the NFL. It's 9th overall there. So Denver's going to have to find a way to capitalize on that. But here's where the key is, right? We talk about Denver getting the run game going. The Green Bay Packers, 28th right now in the NFL, allowing teams to rush for over 143.4 yards per game. This is the formula. This is the key. Run the football with Javonte Williams, who's healthier than he has been so far this season. Jaleel McLaughlin, who's been a blur. This is where the Broncos can really get into the run game and take advantage. And if they don't, look, it's going to be potentially similar struggles to what we've seen so far this season. And like I said, I don't even think I have to remind Broncos country about that. We all know exactly what it looks like. Denver's going to have to find a way, and I think a lot of it comes with protecting Russell Wilson as well. I mean, the pass protection the last couple of weeks has been unacceptable from the offensive line, and even tight ends blocking, receivers blocking. It hasn't been good enough to keep Russell Wilson upright. And I think that's something we have to see a better job of. And obviously for Russ, like he's got to regain that confidence and knowing his clock and knowing that, hey, I may not have time, so I have to stand here, deliver, and throw. But it's on Sean Payton and the Broncos offense to design some concepts that, it's not everything's going to have to be a deep shot, but you're going to find a way to take some shots downfield. Will we see a little bit more of Marvin Mims this week? Jerry Jeudy obviously gave a very candid interview in the Broncos locker room on Thursday, talking about this whole situation with NFL Network analyst Steve Smith. And on top of that, the trade rumors there. And he said, trade me, don't trade me. I'm just going to be me, And so I think overall, Denver's at this really interesting point of the season where Sunday's game, look, I know a lot of fans have given up on the year, and Denver hasn't given you any reason to believe. But if Denver can somehow win this game and then somehow beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I know it's a big if, big if. You go into the bye at 3-5 versus 1-7. I feel like the vibe's a little bit different. You can do some things going forward, even though the second half portion of the schedule doesn't get any easier for Denver. So I think these are things that we have to monitor here going forward. But Broncos country, appreciate you so much for tuning in, rocking with us, making Good Morning Broncos part of your morning routine every single morning on the weekdays, 9:00 a.m. Mountain Time. You get that here. So I'm going to go pour myself another cup of coffee. I'm going to enjoy this morning, and I hope you enjoy this morning as well. The Broncos will have one more final practice here today in Dove Valley. I'll be there, and then kickoff on Sunday, 2:25 p.m. Mountain Time. Do us all a favor as well. Hit that subscribe button if you're a brand new viewer of the show here. You love Colorado sports. You're a Broncos fan. You love the Colorado Avalanche, the Denver Nuggets. We have all that coverage here for you on Mile High Sports. Every team, every day. Subscribe down below. And also, if you want to get involved and check out our written work, we have daily coverage of what's going on with the teams that you love and that you root for at milehighsports.com. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos Country. We'll see you next time for another episode of the show Monday morning. Will it be a victory Monday here for the Denver Broncos? We shall see.